Hi everyone, it's me again, Burrito. So right now I'm gonna walk you guys through the training for our CIT program. Um, Definitely, if you're a CIT or you're going to be a CIT counselor, really pay close attention. But this is a great workshop for everyone else to go through too. Just because I think a lot of people sometimes don't really know what CITs are coming into camp, especially if you haven't been to camp before. And even at that, I this is going to be my second year going to camp, and I just walking through this and learning more about CITs during this past year learned a lot more about their role at camp and the things that they can and can't do, and why the CIT program is so important for us at Camp Kesem. So today I'm going to, like I said, just walk you through what the program is to give you guys an understanding of what the CITs do and the role of each staff member. So us, the admin team, CIT counselors in relation to the CITs. So just to give you guys a quick kind of overview of what the CIT program is and what a CIT even is, just quick 4 key points. So CIT is an acronym for Counselor in Training. It's a bridge program for counselors that age out of the regular camp program and are still too young to be a staff member. So this is usually campers that are coming back to camp. They're still campers, but they're 17, 18 years old. They're either about to finish high school or they just finished high school. So they're in that transition period, and whether their plans next are to go to college. Sometimes, that's a college that will have a Camp Kesem chapter there. Sometimes it's not, but either way, it's a great kind of way for them to still be involved in Camp Kesem, have one more year as a camper, but kind of be in that more mature and transitionary role. So our CIT program includes some aspects of the normal camp programming that we have. For the rest of our campers, they all stay overnight, they participate in activities, but they also experience some sort of leadership and character education, sometimes a service project or service learning, and particularly CIT training. And I'll go over the schedule with you guys later about what a CIT's week would look like at camp. Differs a little bit from the rest of the campers, but these are some things that we have going on throughout the year too. So Ohana, who is our wonderful, wonderful, absolutely amazing CIT coordinator for our chapter this year, has been meeting with the CITs throughout the year, kind of sporadically checking in, making sure that she's developing programming for them to develop their, I don't know, like leadership, communication skills, helping, make them feel like they're still part of the Kesem family, but helping them transition a little bit from that camper role to more of that counselor role. Despite this, it's important to remember that they are still campers at camp, and we'll go over later some of the boundaries and rules that still apply to them as campers, but how some of those things tend to shift a little bit as they mature into a more counselor-heavy role. So in relation to the CIT program, some of you guys might be wondering, what are your roles? So, specifically, I've talked about this before in some other trainings, but as counselors at camp, our jobs are to be good leaders, good counselors, good role models for our campers. So we want to, with all campers, but particularly if you are working with a CIT, you want to make sure that you're really setting that good example and being a good role model, because this is really a time for them to learn directly from you. If they are planning on being a counselor in the future, learning good skills, and what better way than to learn by example. So being that positive role model. So I'm not going to go into detail about some ideas, techniques, and strategies for being a great camp counselor, because we went pretty in depth with that with the whole leadership training. And please, if you have any questions, reach out to us, but you're always welcome to refer back to that training if you kind of want to brush over some of those things. But it's good to keep this in mind, whether you're working directly with the CIT or maybe you have a CIT in your cabin. Again, I'll jump into all of that a little bit later. But yeah, just good things to remember. So, kind of reflecting on some of these things that we talked in previous trainings, strategies for being a great camp counselor, how do you role model these things to CITs? Like I was saying just a little bit earlier, we're role models to all of our campers, but CITs are ones that are directly trying to learn from us and trying to become good role models themselves. So not going to give you the whole 15 minutes to dig deep down, but they could be something as obvious as following the rules. So if you follow the rules yourself, the rules that we have set at camp, then that's going to set a good role model, set a good example for our CATs. But something like having good communication is a little bit more muddled. Again, this is not something I'm going to go super in depth with because we have a training for communication. Hopefully you guys have gotten around to watching that one, or if you were in person, then great, you got to see that one in person. But we went pretty in depth about good communication skills like nonverbal communication, active listening. The third component was clear communication, and we kind of talked about some examples of what that incorporates. But specifically to good communication, this always comes up when we talk about techniques for being a great camp counselor. It's hard to articulate exactly how you would actually role model that to CIT, but as long as you're implementing some of the good communication techniques, good leadership techniques, ways to deal with hard things that come up at camp, like homesickness or dealing with loss, grief, knowledge about Camp Kesem in general. These are all things that you guys have been equipped with, and since you learn them in your role as a counselor, by role modeling that at camp, you can then help your CITs become comfortable with what it means to be a good counselor, and then taking on some of those same characteristics that we try to kind of implement in you guys on themselves. So again, this is going back to the communication training, but really emphasizing what things look like and sound like. So what does good leadership look like and sound like? What is trustworthiness look like and sound like? What do people do and say that can really make you tell that they exemplify whatever characteristic it is you're thinking of? So for the communication example, something would be getting down on a camper's eye level, explaining expectations verbally, in writing, maybe showing them in some other sort of nonverbal manner, looking at campers in the eye when they're talking to you. So again, we're not going to do an extensive list because I think you guys by this point should be pretty equipped with this material from the previous trainings. If not, feel free to look back, ask us questions, we're always here. But ideally, kind of in your mind, you should have some sort of list going of how to role model these ideas, techniques, and strategies that kind of correspond to what it takes to being a great camp counselor. So just going to wrap this section up really quickly, but basically, kind of in a nutshell, the CATs are there to learn how to be better people, stronger leaders, and potentially to be camp counselors in the future. And you guys are camp counselors. Obviously, you were selected to be camp counselors because you are amazing individuals that we know we have faith will set amazing role models for all of our campers. So what better way, like I was saying, for our CATs to learn from you guys how to be great camp counselors and great leaders. And the only way to do all of this in one short week of camp is for them to watch and listen to you guys. So your main job with regards, I mean, you have so many other things that you're doing, but with regards to the CIT program, your job is that the CITs will get the right lessons and examples kind of following your example. And, we want to ensure that we're developing these skills. We want our campers to have good coping skills, to develop good leadership skills appropriate, obviously, for wherever they are in their development. Have good communication skills, learn how to interact socially in appropriate ways. All of these skills are things that we want all of our campers to have, but especially for our CITs. They're at a point in their lives where they're getting ready to kind of transition out of high school, either jump right into college, which, as we all know, can be overwhelming at times, or maybe their plans aren't to go to college and they're going to start working. Whatever it is, these are skills that are really, really going to be useful to them in the future, and especially, if they go to a college that is nearby, another college that has a Camp Kesem chapter, or they go to a college that has a Camp Kesem chapter, and they are aiming towards becoming a camp counselor. By developing these skills now and these skills early, they're going to be really equipped to go to camp and be successful as a counselor. And in addition to that, just be successful later on in life too. So we really want our campers to have amazing futures. They are all so bright and they all have so much potential. So essentially, by us being their role models, we can help them fulfill that potential. So moving on to talking about what the CITs will do. I kind of mentioned this, but the CITs will participate in some activities that the rest of camp will do, but they'll have some deviations in their schedules that are more focused on, CIT activities alone, kind of developing those skills and working specifically within the program to become comfortable and kind of more exposed to some of the skills that we aim or strive for them to get really comfortable with. So I'm going to go over the schedule with you. Ohana was nice enough, thank you, Ohana, to send it over to me. And basically just kind of going to cover, based on the trainings that are scheduled in there, some of the goals of the program, talk about, again, the differences between CIT schedules versus our schedules, over time so the rest of the staff can expect CITs to be shadowing or otherwise involved in their units or program areas, what their role is as a counselor being shadowed, who they can go to if there are issues with CITs. And then I'll go over some of the clear expectations that we have for CIT campers. And this is crucial, again, for alleviating any confusion between CITs and counselors, but also between CITs and campers. We don't want to burden them with too much responsibility that they're not ready for, or maybe put them in an inappropriate position considering that they're still campers, but also, giving them that responsibility and that sense of ownership over their role at camp for this year. Okay, so day 1, Sunday, we arrive at camp. People start to trickle in around 1:30. We'll all get there early to set up and everything, but campers will arrive within this time frame, and we'll just have a bunch of fun activities that campers can do. It'll be free choice. And then at 3 to 3:15, there will be a CIT meeting to quickly go over the week. Again, this is different. The rest of camp will not be doing a CIT meeting. We'll be doing either some other sort of activity or song circle or kind of get to know you, something like that. And then after their CIT meeting ends, they're going to go right into training to go over policies and procedures. And starting off with this, just to go over basic rules at camp, what they're expected of in their role as a CIT this year. And then from this time, 3:45 until 4:30, they're going to go into training, camper behavior management, and then another training from 4:30 to 5:05, which is shadowing counselors. This is something that you'll do. Sometimes you'll have CITs at designated times come in, follow you around your cabin, participate in cabin chat. And again, this is just for them to be working with you directly and getting that great example of what being a good counselor means. That way, if they do take on this position in the future, they'll know what is expected of them, really, and they'll kind of have been in that role at camp before. Fire drill, which we'll all do, super fun. And then from 5:15 to 6, dinner, mealtime. So this kind of, after this kind of intro to camp, this is where CITs will break off and do their own thing. And then the rest of this time pretty much is going to be with the rest of camp. So this is similar to what you'll get in your schedules when you do get those. And then we'll all break off, do our cabin chats in our own cabins, and then have lights out at 10 for CITs. I'm not sure if it's different for other counselors this year. I'll have to check on that. So that's day 1. And then you'll kind of notice a trend as I go through each of the days. So activity, wake up, song circle, breakfast, skit, color words initiation, come up with chant. So this is everyone. And these blue sections are going to be, again, where CITs differ. So it was the same here. But, so everyone has lunch, everyone does feed on bedtime, but then CITs will go into trainings again here, while the rest of camp will go into other activities or be doing something else that Ops has planned for us. And then showers, dinner, typical day at camp. Feel free to look over the rest of this. But yeah, again, the difference is that while they're experiencing camp from a camper perspective in these activities, they're also there to observe and to watch how you act as a counselor and to learn. And then to go into these trainings here to, if you look at the titles, they're actually pretty similar to some of the trainings that we have planned for you guys or that we did in this past year to prepare you to go to camp. So again, just equipping them with information and the skills that they need to be successful as a counselor. This is day 3, Tuesday. So, again, this is going to be They go through rotations like the rest of us will. This is pretty similar to what the rest of us will be doing, if not exactly the same. And then from 3 to 5:30, they'll have more trainings. Dinner, all-night camp activity, campfire, cabin chats. And then here's kind of where, again, it differs. They have their CIT meeting to debrief, have cabin chat, and plan for the next day, and then have lights out. Wednesday, day 4, again, I won't go in depth anymore just because I think you guys are starting to get the idea, but essentially, Wednesday, Thursday is the same, and then, Thursday is the last day I have here, but essentially just the same idea. They have trainings scheduled at some point throughout the day for them to really focus just within their own CIT group on the program and developing skills, learning how to be a counselor from our CIT counselors and whoever else is involved, and then at the same time, the rest of the day still being a camper, still having that fun and getting to experience camp from that intermediate camper/counselor perspective. Cool. So it's possible that before camp some of the schedule might change, but you guys will all be well aware of, when CITs will be around. Again, the CIT counselors are there to help them with this skill development and really being an essential part of the program themselves. But you as counselors in other cabins, other units, will be interacting with them a lot too. So make sure you're doing everything to set a good example, make them feel welcome. I think sometimes that transition period between being a camper, being a counselor can be a little bit different. It's a different experience for everyone, trying to figure out how they fit in as a camper, sometimes how they fit in as a counselor. So just really encouraging them, giving them praise if they did something that you thought was really good, and just really making them feel like part of your group whenever they're around. As a regular staff or regular counselor that is not working directly with the CIT program, this is a great way just for you to really interact with them and engage with them. Again, I kind of touched on these other things. What are the goals of the program? And here, what are some resources or help you might need from them? Again, they're there to learn from you, but they're also there to be a helping hand whenever you might need it. So if things are busy and crazy and you need another kind of quote-unquote counselor hand to help out, definitely kind of involve them, make them feel like they have some sort of responsibility. It'll really, really contribute to their experience in learning how to be a good counselor. If something goes wrong or a CIT is not meeting their expectations, you can talk to them, but definitely talk to Ohana, who is the head of the CIT program, admin team. These are, again, other CIT counselors that are working directly with them. They are a good resource to talk to and to really involve in the process because they're essential to shaping the CIT experience and the CIT program. So that's just kind of a quick overview of what the CIT program is, what their weeks look like, and how it differs a little bit from the kind of general camp experience. So now I'm going to go a little more in depth. This is the CIT program guide for this year. This is just to kind of lay out specifically some of the rules and guidelines for the CIT program, just so you guys are aware. Fundraising, specific programming, how CITs can become counselors, just information that might be helpful for you in better preparing yourself to work with CITs while we're at camp. So some of this I've already kind of covered in the rest of the training, so I'll just briefly go over the rules and guidelines here. So CITs are 17 and 18-year-olds that are entering into their senior year of high school or just completed high school that have or have had a parent with cancer. So same rules as our other campers, and they must be eligible to apply to be a CIT camper. They will go through the same application and acceptance process as the rest of our campers, and acceptance letters will be sent by our program director or intake volunteer. Chapters are required to have a CIT program unless otherwise approved by PD. Again, this just ties back to we really want to be a core component of our campers developing and becoming good leaders and developing the rest of the skills that we talk about that we want you guys to have, just so we can ensure that, when their time with Camp Custom comes to a close, that they're going to be really successful in their lives. CIT counselors must be at least 21 years old as of the first day of camp, and this is just following the same rule that our counselors must be at least 3 years older than the oldest camper in the group. So same rule follows for our teen campers. All of our teen counselors have to be at least 20 years old. And then we usually don't run into issues with any younger than that. But again, this is just a guideline that we have to follow as part of Camp Kesem. Same with other counselor or other campers. Our CITs must share a cabin separated by gender and should not be dispersed or separated among younger units. And the staff to CIT ratio is 1 staff member to every 4 CIT campers. If there are less than 4 CIT campers, there must be 1 male and 1 female counselor. Again, these are just standard rules that we have to follow. I know it's a little dry, but just going to run through it really quickly. CITs are considered campers, and because of this part is really important for you guys to know. Our CIT's emotional and physical safety are our responsibility, and CITs should always be in sight of counselors except when using the restroom and showering. Again, this is following the same rule for the rest of our campers. This is an aspect where we really do treat our CITs like campers still. CITs can also not take younger campers to the restroom alone. This is something that you guys can do as long as you stay in ratio, but you definitely do not want to let a CIT go to the restroom alone with younger campers. Since they are still counselors, since they are still campers, they need a counselor present. Again, CIT is considered to be a camper, so they cannot take 2 campers to the restroom. CIT can accompany a counselor and camper to the restroom to help with the rule of 3 if they want to. It can also be good for them to get that experience of escorting and trying to control the little ones in the restroom, which can be a bit challenging sometimes. And as always, CITs may never be one-on-one with a camper or a staff member. Same rule that applies to the rest of our campers. CITs are not to have phones or electronics and must adhere to rules and policies outlined in the Camp Kesem Honor Code. CIT programming should be focused on fun and developing leadership skills rather than being solely focused on childcare, and must follow the programming guidelines below. So CITs must receive a daily scheduled rest hour with the entire unit. Just as you guys as counselors have a mandatory rest hour every day, the CITs have to get a scheduled hour in since they're taking on more responsibility than they would be as regular campers, but they're not separate. So as a unit, they will take a scheduled rest hour. There must be at least 1 counselor acting as an advisor or unit leader for each CIT unit, and the rest of the counselors that are CIT counselors. This can be a current student, at least 21 years old, or alumni approved by the program director. So this year at camp, we are lucky enough for week 1, so all of you lucky week 1ers out there, we will have Scooby, who's going to be our unit leader or CIT advisor for our CITs week 1 for our CIT boys. And same as our other unit leaders, the CIT unit leader provides leadership to counselors, attends all staff meetings, and acts as a liaison between admin team, CITs, and counselors. And again, like the rest of you unit leaders out there, the CIT unit leader must be CPR and first aid certified. All CIT counselors must go through the CIT counselor training. The schedule must be turned in. Again, this is just regulations that don't really pertain to you guys, but it's just good to go over. So this is important to know that daily programming for CITs must consist of the following aspects. So fun, which is regularly scheduled time with the CIT unit, just to encourage bonding and social connection with CITs that are in the same age, having the same experience at camp. Leadership development, which is based on activities and workshops, and CIT activities and training. This is spending time with younger campers while shadowing counselors, counselor training, etc. So again, this is the time, like I mentioned before, when you might have a CIT shadowing you in your cabin, maybe during cabin chat or at one of your rotations. Just remembering that fun, leadership development, and the activities and training for CITs are the 3 core components of a program while we're at camp. So another core aspect of our CIT program is to have goal setting and debriefing. So it's important for CITs to reflect on their time and process activities and what they have learned through those activities as well as the trainings. A great way to do this is in the form of group debriefs, journals, and cabin chat questions. Again, this is more for developing, but just so you guys know that this is the CITs, as they're watching you, as they're learning, are going to be reflecting a lot on what they're learning. So if they have any questions, always be open to answering questions. You can even check up, say, hey, like, how are things going? How are you liking your experience as a CIT so far? Is there anything that I can do to help make your experience wonderful? Do you have any questions for me? That kind of stuff. Okay, so an important thing to know about CITs is that they are not required to fundraise. They're still campers, so they're still supported by Camp Custom to go to camp, but it can be really kind of great for them to get that fundraising experience. And we've found in the past that CITs enjoy giving back and gain a sense of accomplishment. So just knowing that it's an option for CITs to fundraise. Why should they fundraise? Just because Camp Kesem, in addition to providing summer camp for children whose parents have cancer, is committed to developing a foundation for lifelong leadership among both campers and college students. I've touched on this before. Part of our ensuring that we're fostering a very positive, kind of uplifting, empowering social environment between our campers and between us and our campers is ensuring that we're equipping them with skills that will be useful to them for the rest of their lives. So this is particularly important for CITs because the transition from being a youth leader to a team camper to a CIT involves changing activities and increased responsibility. And this shift in what your schedule looks like is definitely different, and it definitely requires a certain sort of adjustment for CITs. So introducing them to the idea of fundraising for Camp Kesem can be really helpful as part of adding on this responsibility and reframing, what their experience in camp is going to look like. And then to briefly go over CITs becoming counselors in the future. A big question is, when is a CIT eligible to become a counselor? So it's after being out of high school for one full calendar year. They must be 18 years or older. So if they graduated in May of 2017, they can be a counselor in summer of 2018. But they cannot be a counselor in summer of 2017 because then they would still be eligible to be a CIT. So what requirements do former CITs have to meet in order to become a counselor? Again, this is the same requirements as a regular counselor. They must be involved throughout the year, attend mandatory meetings in person, complete their counselor fundraising, attend all training, pass the background check, complete EOTs, and be able to attend camp for its duration. So looking back on that, you guys did all this. So just taking a break from the training, going to give you guys snaps for accomplishing all of this. It's a lot. You ask a lot of you guys, but it's just to ensure that we're making camp the best experience possible. So we do hold our CITs to the same standard. Even though I have had prior experience at Camp Kesem, it was in a camper role. And yeah, the CIT program definitely prepares them for this counselor role, but we still have these expectations of them because we want to ensure that they're showing their dedication to Camp Kesem as a counselor now rather than as a camper. So where can a CIT become a counselor? If a former CIT attends a university with a Camp Kesem chapter, that is the only chapter they may apply to be a counselor for. And if a former CIT does not continue with schooling or they attend a university without a chapter, they may apply to be a counselor at the chapter closest to them. This is so that if they are able to stay involved year-round, attend mandatory meetings, trainings, then they'll still be able to go to camp. This is one difference. We typically do not allow people unless it's under approval from nationals, approval from a program director, some sort of special circumstance. We typically do not allow people that were not involved in Camp Kesem before to be a counselor if they are not in college and do not go to the university or college that has the chapter that they are interested in going to. But because we, for SCITs, they've expressed that interest in being a counselor. They've shown dedication to Kesem for a lot of times, many, many years. We don't want to kind of slam the door on them and say, no, you can't be a counselor. We still want to offer that opportunity if they're looking to be involved and give back to Kesem what Kesem was able to give to them. Some general other guidelines: if a CIT does not attend college, how long are they able to be a counselor? 4 summers. So same rule as standard college experience. I know a lot of people nowadays are not following the traditional 4 years, but that's typically what we expect for you guys to serve 4 years at camp. Can CITs become camp advisors after 4 years? Yes. So this is another really positive from being involved in the program, is that former CITs are eligible to be camp advisors. If you haven't been to camp before, camp advisors are people that were involved in Camp Kesem, in their undergraduate experience, and maybe graduated and want to have some sort of heavier hand in being involved in Camp Kesem. So these people will travel to different chapters, camps during the summer, and help out as a part of the admin team. Or if they didn't go to college, CITs are also eligible to be camp advisors after they spent 2 summers being a counselor and are 21 years old or older than that. So that was just kind of a brief overview of a somewhat extensive explanation of some of the details about the CIT program. So I have this one quick final document to go over with you guys. A lot of it is overlap, but again, there are some tidbits of information in here that I think would be good to cover. So just really quickly, again, you guys know the age and the requirements for CITs that are going to be CITs, or campers that are going to be CITs. Chapters, we didn't go over this part, so chapters may have a CIT program in their second year of being a chapter and onward, unless otherwise approved by the PD. Up to 10% of the total camper spots can be allocated to CIT campers, but anything outside of this range should be discussed with the PD. We went over this. And I think the rest of the rules we did cover. This aspect right here, the CIT programming should be focused on fun, developing leadership skills rather than solely focused on childcare, and must follow programming guidelines that we covered. This is really important in ensuring that the program is still going to be a lot of fun, but is really focused on equipping them with the skills that we've talked about. And again, yeah, just covering these 3 key components: fun with their CIT unit, not necessarily with younger campers. We want to make sure that we're giving them that time with the other CITs. This is just because it gives CITs the time to, also just be a kid while feeling loved, respected, and supported by Camp Kesem throughout the week. They are older, they're more mature, but they still deserve to kind of get away from everything and have that fun while they're at camp too. Next is leadership development, which consists of activities and workshops. This program, CIT's program specifically, works on developing strong leaders through training, discussion, observation, and practice. And the program is for teens who age out of normal camp program and are interested in developing as leaders. So going into it, they're aware of what the CIT program is about, and it really does equip them with the skills and the practice, the real life, practice and observation that's important to developing the skills on their own. And, they'll be better prepared to work with their peers and children of all ages, interests, and abilities, and will have developed great life and leadership skills. CIT should participate in at least 1 leadership development workshop a day, and workshops should be well thought out and planned ahead of time, and, gone over with the program director to ensure that the CITs will be getting a wide range of workshops. You don't want to focus on just 1 or 2 topics, such as college admissions, especially because you might have CITs that are not going to college, or if you have other workshops that might not be relevant to them. So here are some example workshops that would be good to have. We went over the workshops that our CITs will have, and you'll see a lot of these reflected in that schedule, just because they are great workshops to ensure that we're developing the skills that we want to be developing for our CITs. And CITs should participate in at least 1 counselor training a day. And again, you'll see a lot of these reflected in our own CIT schedule that we went over at the beginning of this training. So something that I touched on briefly in the beginning but didn't go into depth about is what CITs do during the school year. So like I said, Ohana has been working with the CITs to get them exposed to some of these leadership ideas and experiences early on before we go to camp. But it's great to expose CITs to our different coordinator positions, our exec board and the committees that we have working for all of us. So getting them involved in outreach, development, operations, volunteer, marketing, and PR. and they can even attend meetings. I don't know if it actually ended up happening, I can't remember, but I think we had one meeting where CITs did come and got to kind of experience what a meeting is like. So that way they know if they do decide to be a counselor going into their next year if they go to college, or if they're somewhere close to a college that has a chapter, they can kind of know what a meeting looks like. So that is the end of the CIT workshop. Again, if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We, like I've been saying, are always here for you guys, and we know that going into camp, sometimes people aren't really aware of what the CIT program is, but it really is a super important part of Camp Kesem, an important part of our chapter. And Ohana and the CITs this year have been working so hard to, operations to develop the program and make sure it's going to be really, really rewarding for our CIT campers. And we are very excited to see them and the rest of our campers and see how amazing everything turns out. So don't forget to take the quiz. This is a bit of a brief training, but still important information. So I want to make sure you guys have that down. And again, feel free to reach out at any point. Sending you all my love. Bye, guys.